Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. We have Dr. Hardt with us once again. Dr. Hardt, as most of you know, is the founder, chairman, and owner of Biocybernaut. Dr. Hardt, thank you so much for joining us again.
Doug, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
The feeling's so mutual. Dr. Hardt, you did an amazing presentation. We did several of them, but one strikes me as you did a presentation at the world's largest global consciousness summit not too long ago. Now, that presentation is still available on our YouTube channel for people to go check out, but it's something for some that they've never heard about before, and certainly for me as an example, and that's on the Akashic Records. Can you just give us a little taste of what are the Akashic Records and why should we be interested in them?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's very cool. The Akashic Records are an energetic database or a library of all knowledge that was, is, and ever will be. That's a pretty cool library.
Yeah.
And you have to have a library card to get in. The library card is theta brainwaves. Now, we're not talking about drowsy theta. We're talking about mystical theta. And mystical theta has actually a different morphology of the waveforms than drowsy theta. Drowsy theta looks like little pointy croquet wickets, and mystical theta is sinusoidal and comes in spindles and looks like slowed down alpha. Akasha is a Sanskrit word which means primordial substance. And there are people, I've trained some of them and worked with others as consultants who do what are called readings in the Akashic Records. And what they do is they go into a theta state, open your records. Everyone has personal records. You have to give permission for them to be opened. And then these people who do readings can give absolutely amazing guidance because, of course, they're accessing a universal database. And so in the longer presentation, and maybe this short intro will help fortify you with curiosity so that you'll be able to go through the entire presentation. This short presentation is simply to introduce the concept of the Akashic Records. Now, some of you may have heard of Edgar Cayce, who was called the Dreaming Saint. And he was a fairly, original kind of Christian. He was a Sunday school teacher and father. He had developed the ability to lie down on his couch, fold his hands across his chest, and go into a deep state, which we know from the posture and everything was a theta state. And then he would do readings, and people would ask, oh, how do I solve this medical problem? Or, oh, what should I do in this relationship? Or, should I send my daughter to this college or that college? And he would provide amazing readings, which even today, I think he died around 1945. Even today, as you go through and study his readings, there's amazing forms of wisdom there. My own personal experience, I was introduced to a reader in the Akashic Records in 2003 by one of my trainees. And she did a number of incredible readings for me and subsequently sent her best student to me for training. That student was Anne Jensen. She's now passed. And she did Alpha 1, Alpha 2, and then she did Theta 1. Now, in this tradition, there's a secret prayer that the reader will say in order to open the records. Well, after Anne had done her theta training, she would simply turn on theta and she would be in the records.
Wow.
There's, like, for example, if you learn how to ride a bicycle, that's a pretty good skill. But what if you just go back and forth to school on it? You don't go on any cool trails and you don't find the hidden lake at the end of the Box Canyon and things like that. So once you have a skill, then it's important to work with people who know what they're doing to develop it. Yes, of course, you'll get information coming in. I'll tell you one story. I had a man in training. This was in my Canadian center, and he had a fair amount of naturally occurring theta. And he was having trouble forgiving his mother. His mother was very mean when he was a little boy. If he did anything she didn't like, mother would grab him by the neck, take him over to a big wooden door and smash his head repeatedly into the door until he fell unconscious to the floor. So naturally, he's got some brain damage. Scar tissue produces, guess what? Theta brainwaves. So he's having trouble forgiving his mother. Now, he had a very interesting story. His grandfather had a seat on the CBOT. That's the Chicago Board of Trade. It's an open pit outcry auction. And you can make millions of dollars on contracts, like you buy 10,000 bushels of wheat on margin. And if the wheat goes up a penny, you make millions of dollars. And so his grandfather had a seat. His father had a seat on the board. He wasn't interested. This was not his cup of tea. And so then a seat became open. Now, often these seats will sell for $2 or $3 million because they give you access to the pits where you're right in the heart of it. You can make the trades. There's no middleman between you and the incredible margins that you can make money on. And it was only $17,000. Normally, $1 million or more. And his friend said, "Oh, you should buy it." He goes, "Yeah, I'm not interested in that." And his friends say, "Well, look, your grandfather had a seat, your father had a seat, you should have a seat." "Oh, no, I'm not interested in trading." And so then one of the friends said, "Well, look, why don't you buy the seat and then you can hold it. And then when it goes up to $3 million, you can sell it." He goes, "Okay." So he bought the seat. And now he's sitting at his desk and this little voice in his head says, "Buy corn futures." So he buys corn futures. Now, these are timed contracts. They expire. And if it doesn't move in the desired direction, it expires. It's worthless. And so it expired, worthless. 3 days later, corn makes a massive move that would have made him millions of dollars if the move had come a little earlier. So that kind of whets his appetite. The next time he hears a little voice, he's sitting at his desk, "Buy wheat futures." So he buys wheat futures. And the same thing happens. It expires, and then 3 or 4 days later, it makes a huge move that would have made him a huge amount of money. And so this had happened 4 or 5 times. And he's grousing about it to his wife, complaining. And his wife looks at him and goes, "Well, honey, when you hear the little voice, why don't you write it down and wait a week and then buy your darn futures?" He goes, "Oh, that's a pretty good idea." And so he does that. Now he's making millions and millions of dollars. He's just so flushed with money. And but he's still having trouble forgiving his mother. So then I tell him, that little voice in your head? That probably comes from the scar tissue making those theta brainwaves that are giving you access to the Akashic Records. Oh my God. Now it's easy to forgive his mother. In the Biocybernaut forgiveness process, you make the charge, you go in to feel the pain, and then you look for the good that came from it. Well, in that case, this was pretty easy. So this is an example of somebody who had theta and didn't know what to do with it. And it was there. Now, theta wears many hats. A growing brain tumor will produce theta brainwaves. Before CAT scans, multi-channel EEGs were the only way to detect a brain tumor non-surgically. The theta activity occurs in the aura that precedes an epileptic seizure. Let's say you have an epileptic, and typically before they go into seizure, this movie starts to play in their mind. It might be they're walking down a country lane. There's a beautiful wooden log fence. It's fall. There's a little pond. There's a tree filled with golden leaves, and one of the leaves breaks off and comes floating down. And the moment it touches the pond, bam, the seizures. Somebody like this, if they're driving and the little movie starts to play, they quickly, pull off the road. And so theta is also associated, mystical theta, with advanced Zen meditation. One of the things that distinguishes advanced Zen from beginner or intermediate is the emergence of theta waves at the frontal locations. Doesn't happen in beginner, doesn't happen in intermediate. Usually it's at least 21 to 40 years of Zen practice before you start to have this theta show up. Well, of course, we know that in the Alpha 1 training at Biocybernaut, the whole pattern from beginner to intermediate to advanced Zen shows up in just 7 days, including the emergence of frontal theta. And as the training has gotten more powerful, the technology has improved over the years, we're now also starting to see some increases in theta at the central regions. So like I said, theta wears many hats, and mystical theta, particularly that you self-generate, allows you to access the Akashic Records. Maybe I do one more story. Thomas Edison. Now, most people know Thomas Edison invented the electric light bulb. He would have a list of things he wanted to invent, and he would sleep deprive himself. He would sleep only 4 hours a night, and in 2 sections. So he'd sleep 2 hours, get up, then sleep again 2 hours. So guaranteed he'd be tired during the day. And so then in his workshop, his lab, he would have a big recliner chair, and he would lie down in the recliner chair with his notebook on his chest. And then he would have in each hand, he would hold a large steel ball bearing and drape his arms over the edges of the chair. Under each hand was a large metal pie plate. So while thinking of something he wanted to invent, he would fall asleep easy because he's sleep deprived. Well, as soon as he hits theta, he loses postural tonus, and the steel ball bearings drop with a clattering din, wake him up. He grabs his notebook and he writes down whatever little bit of an idea he had. Then he retrieves the ball bearing and lies back and goes for another piece. And so rather than thinking of this as New Age nonsense, it's actually been the basis of over 1,000 patents by the revered inventor, scientist Thomas Alva Edison. And so you can learn more about this mystical theta and the Akashic Records by going to the full report there.
Well, it's almost like getting our own library card of sorts and being able to go to that next report and watch your video, which I have seen and is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Hardt, thank you so much as always for taking the time. I know how busy you are. And so thank you so much for being with us. Very grateful.
Wonderful, Doug. Always a delight to talk with you and about such cool things.
Absolutely. Take care.
Hi, I'm Tony Robbins. Listen, if you are looking to improve your brain, your psyche, your ability, your emotions, your ability to really maximize your performance, and you want to really dig into your brain, my dear friend, Dr. Jim Hardt, and his Biocybernaut program is extraordinary. I've been through it myself. My wife Sage has, members of my family have, and we found it to be truly extraordinary. But it is not for the faint at heart. Unless you're dead serious about really taking things to the next level, don't bother. We went through the Alpha program designed to maximize your ability to create alpha waves. And it was challenging and it was incredibly rewarding. And I'd recommend it to anybody serious about improving the quality of their lives or including the quality of their family lives as well. So check out Cybernaut, check out Dr. Jim Hardt. And if you do, I think you'll be really, really pleased. And the entire time you are learning to think and how you think these electrodes create sounds. And you learn how to put yourself in the zone of alpha. But it's a bitch. It's horrible. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that wants easy experiences, but I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to grow immensely. And by the first day, I'm like, who do I got to shoot to get out of this thing? Oh, it's me. I'm the one that did this shit. Right? But by the end of the week, all 3 of us were able to go into this state of alpha. And if you're familiar with alpha, the best way I can describe alpha is there's no problem that can't be solved in alpha. Because every problem that we have was created by us.
Thank you for being here and absorbing this information about the science of brainwaves and about the stories of people whose lives have been beneficially altered, improved by doing brainwave training at Biocybernaut. And now I'm reaching out to you to invite you to come and be a part of the Biocybernaut adventure. Biocybernauts are to inner space what astronauts are to outer space. So come and adventure with us. And if you'd like to leave a comment on the videos, you can do that, or there's a link you can click if you'd like to learn more. We welcome you to Biocybernaut.